Now, let's see what the common good must entail for our time in which we live. Laudato Si, you all know it, we all know it. Praise be to you, my Lord. In the words of this beautiful canticle, St. Francis of Assisi reminds us that our common home is like a sister with whom we share our life, and a beautiful mother who opens her arms to embrace us. Praise be to you, my Lord, through our sister, Mother Earth, who sustains and governs us. What is that? What is that? That is, it gets worse. International negotiations cannot make significant progress due to the positions taken by countries which place their national interests above the global common good. Here we go. This is Laudato Si. This is not some strange document. Now let's read this one. Sacramental Signs on the Celebration of Rest. Article 233 in this encyclical. The universe unfolds in God, who fills it completely. Hence there is a mystical meaning to be found in a leaf, in a mountain trail, in a dewdrop, and in a poor person's face. What is that? That's pantheism. Let's call it panentheism. This is panentheism. Out of the pen of the Pope. We spoke about it this week. This is panentheism, and it is satanic. The ideal is not to pass from the exterior to the interior to discover the action of God in the soul, but also discover God in all things, in case you didn't get it. We serve a personal God. We do not serve this God who defines what the common good is based on the language of Lucifer and not the language of God. On Sunday, our participation in the Eucharist has a special importance. Sunday, like the Jewish Sabbath, is meant to be a day which heals our relationship with God, with ourselves, with others, and with the world. Sunday is the day of the resurrection, the first day of the new creation, whose first fruits are the Lord's risen humanity, the pledge of the final transfiguration of all created reality. Excuse me? It also proclaims man eternal rest in God. So he wants Sunday to be part of this common good. And so the day of rest centered on the Eucharist sheds its light on the whole week and motivates us to greater concern for nature and the poor. He doesn't care two hoots about the poor because he just said they're going to remain poor. There's just going to be a redistribution of wealth, not to make them wealthy, but to make them that take the wealth wealthy, and then to keep you happy, make you pay to go and watch football. Mary, the mother who cared for Jesus, now cares for maternal affection and pain for this wounded world. Carried up into heaven, she is the mother and queen of all creation. This is so, let me not say it. No Christian should ever embrace this without incurring the wrath of God. We've all just made fools of ourselves again. Maybe it's time to declare a national Sabbath, said the New York Times. Maybe it's time to step back from the skull-mongering and assess who we are right now. Spirit of prophecy. I can breathe again. All Christendom will be divided into two classes. Those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus, and those who worship the beast and his image and receive his mark. As the Sabbath has become a special point of controversy throughout Christendom, and religious and secular authorities have combined to enforce the observance of Sunday, the persistent refusal of a small minority to yield to the popular demand will make them the object of universal execration. That's a very strong word. You cannot get stronger than that. Add to that your position on sport and think how the masses will love you. This is not a popularity contest. We're up against the wall. There is no uglier word than sin. This is me writing. And all created beings have suffered because of it, but the God of the universe has suffered the most. The basis of sin lies in pride, discontent, selfishness, and covetousness. It leads to lies and murder. The man of sin has multiplied sin under a cloak of righteousness. He has driven through his economic systems that he controls, the man of sin, to this great divide between rich and poor, so that he can saw them all off and get his common good and get what the worship that he wants universally. That's what he's done. And the hatred that he brings up and conjures up in humanity, where they become brute beasts and want to execute anyone who doesn't think like them. You are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a liar from the beginning. From within, out of the hearts of men proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, theft, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within and defile a man. Pope Francis encourages teen climate activist Greta Thunberg to continue her fight. Well, if you want to succeed, enroll the youth. Why not? So she comes to the youth. There she is with the Pope. Pope Francis met teenage climate activist Greta Thunberg following his weekly audience at the Vatican. The Swedish 16-year-old held a sign that read, "Join the climate strike. Tell students to stop learning." You did not act in time. Greta Thunberg's full speech to the MPs, The Guardian. The speech by 15-year-old climate activist Greta Thunberg, everyone should listen to. Should we? Should we? Well, let's have a look a little further. What's that? What's that? What does that mean? What is that the symbol of, and who is it the symbol of? Of the New Age Antichrist? Is that the symbol? Why would she pose like that unless she's been asked to pose like that? She's being used as a little dupe. At least when young people start standing up and talking to God, it's under the unction of God and not someone manipulating them into thinking that way. Greta Thunberg to sail the Atlantic for climate conference. We'll be sailing across the Atlantic Ocean from the UK to New York in mid-August. Why? Because we don't want to have carbon emission. So we'll be sailing. Well, she better watch out for that spray while she's sailing. She could get wet behind the ears. It's just a possibility, isn't it? And this carbon thing. Do you know that there are two scientific criteria out there? The one that is being peddled by the West and the one that is maintained by the Russians and the others. And the one says that carbon has increased dramatically over the last decades. And the other one says if it has increased, then at a maximum of 0.1%. Which one do you want to believe? And why do some of the top climate experts say that only the Russian one is the one that is accurate? You can go and check it out. I'm not going to give a lecture on climate. But really, if you're worried about carbon, the ocean is the biggest carbon sink on the planet. And if you don't believe that the ocean can absorb carbon, then look at the Carboniferous, where you have the White Cliffs of Dover and all of that was absorbed into the ocean. The ocean will sink any excess carbon rise. And if you still don't want to believe it, then why are we so ignorant? Why don't we follow the Ethiopians? They at least had the brains to plant more than 1 million trees in a day. What are they going to do? Put a carbon monitor on your mouth to determine how much tax you must pay every day? Well, you might as well put a plastic bag over your mouth and die. Because the carbon dioxide that you breathe out is the food that the plant needs to give you the oxygen that you require. God has designed it like that. And these people, in my opinion, are lying to you. It's probably a hate crime to say that. I don't know. Maybe they've gone that far. You're not allowed to deny climate change. This is amazing. Parliament of World Religions, Hanley Foundation, the 10 Commandments of Laudato Si. This is the Parliament of World Religions talking about the 10 Commandments of the papal encyclical and how they must be enforced. And these are the speakers. Oh, Cambridge Scholars, 2010, the 10 Green Commandments of Laudato Si. Father so-and-so. It's either Catholics or it's this professor who's a Jewish rabbi or this one who comes from the Islamic world or whatever. If Pope Francis is right when he insists that the solution to our environmental problems cannot be found only in technocratic approaches by governments and institutions, but by a wide and thoughtful embrace by all of our common responsibility, then Father so-and-so's book is precisely what we need at this time. Thank you, I've read enough of their books. I've got a better one, it's called the Bible. And there are the 10 Commandments. Spiritual perspective is now part of the discussion on the environment. That's an interesting one to start off with, isn't it? The poor are disproportionately affected by climate change. If you can explain that one to me, I'll be very happy. How are the poor disproportionately affected by climate change? Aren't we all in the same boat? Well, then the Pope must be worst affected because he's the richest man on the planet. Less is more. Their philosophy never ceases to amaze me. Catholic social teaching includes teaching on the environment. Discussions about ecology can be grounded in the Bible and church tradition. I'm glad they think so. Everything is connected, including the economy. Scientific research on the environment is to be praised and used. Widespread indifference and selfishness worsen environmental problems. Global dialogue and solidarity are needed. The change of heart is required. Oh, well, thank you very much. Now, this is fascinating. This is Pope Francis. God is young. And this is what he writes. Climate change is increasingly alarming. In your opinion, they're asking the Pope, do young people recognize the urgency of the matter? Are young people today more likely to protect the ecosystem than previous generations? This is a subject that is very close to my heart, says the Pope, because only by protecting the ecosystem can we protect our children, our grandchildren, and every future generation. Consequently, caring for the environment, listen carefully, should be written in red ink and highlighted on the first page of every political agenda. Should be written in red ink. What is written in red ink in your Bible? So who's telling them what to do? Every political agenda? The Pope. He's saying that. And whereas my Bible says, go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every nation, tribe, and kingdom. Not climate change. Doesn't tell that. Doesn't say that at all. So at the last G20, who was present? Well, they had all the great keynote speakers. Look at the bishops, the archbishops, and the world leaders that were speaking there. And besides the keynote speakers, representatives from, I have to say this, all the major religions, ecumenical bodies, and the sporting world were associated at this meeting. So at the last G20, all the religious bodies, all of them, and the sporting bodies. Are we getting a plan together here? The G20 Interfaith Forum is a platform for raising the level and effectiveness of religious inputs and providing a sharp focus on values on global political issues, bringing together global leaders and experts from religion, civil society, governments, academia, and of course, all of these issues that they want to talk about, aging societies and care for the earth, etc. Parliament of World Religions gives us a summary of what happened, the messages from Pope Francis and His Holiness Bartholomew, commit to working for peace and collaboration with faith actors, focus sharply and explicitly on the needs of children. Sounds all very good. Bolster actions to strengthen the rule of law and initiate and commit to global and national message to combat trafficking, and climate change is very high on the agenda. Here's another interesting one. CBN News. This is, look at the date, 2019. Government restrictions on religion increasing worldwide. Oh, where? Government restrictions on religions have increased markedly in many places around the world, not only in authoritarian countries, but also in many European democracies. They're going to tighten the screws. The time is coming. Hegelian dialectics, moving humanity towards the ultimate goal. Todd Starnes. I had a front seat row at Trump's State of the Union. You won't believe what I saw. Going back now to his inauguration. A few days ago, I caused a bit of an uproar when I said on Fox News that there was an evil in the Democratic Party. After what I saw on Tuesday night, I absolutely stand by these words. There is something demonic happening within the ranks of the Democrats. Perhaps they should consider swapping their white dresses and cloaks for sackcloth and ashes. The new America, the same is happening in Europe, where right-wing parties have gained significantly. Not surprisingly, both the CFR evaluations of the races, etc., and the European Union's dictatorial rule as being expired by far right. They're moving towards the right. And the power that the Parliament has really is to change laws. They want to change laws. What laws do they want to change? The European Commission is the initiator of laws, and then Parliament can debate and change them. So these European parliamentary elections were very closely watched. The highest turnout ever. Okay, let me first go to this one. To give you a little bit of background. If you think Donald Trump is the flash in the pan, and it was never planned like this, and he's really turning the apple cart upside down, then perhaps you should think again. Because there has never been a president that hasn't been the president before he was the president. Let me put it that way.
Right now, Christians are professing that prophecy is in the making, as an Israeli organization has started to mint coinage, which displays a 70-year fulfillment of Israel. It represents the gathering of Israel together again, giving all glory to Trump's image, which is in front of King Cyrus on the front of the coin, and a rebuilt third temple on the back. The coin itself, paired with the current geopolitical state of affairs, is shocking, as it indeed represents that we are on the verge of a cataclysmic period in time, known as the end times. However, one specific aspect of this coin caught my attention. That is, the image of Donald Trump on the front, paired with the symbol of peace, a dove, on the back. It reminded me that before Donald Trump was elected president, he was referred to as Donald the Dove. Why is that? Well, back in 1983, a well-known photographer named William Coupon had photographed him with a dove when he was at the pinnacle of his career. But what did Donald Trump have to do with a dove that would warrant this picture? While it's difficult to find, William Coupon is on record, at least twice, stating that the photo shoot was for a Manhattan Inc. magazine edition. He states on Time.com, quote, "I shot Donald Trump twice. This is my favorite. Trump was offering his services as a peace negotiator. between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Later on Tao Style, he writes, he, Donald Trump, was 32 years old when I took that photograph in 1983. He was attempting to, independently, negotiate an agreement between the Israelis and Palestinians at that time. So when the news first broke in the Trump presidency that he would try to attempt Middle East peace, it took many by surprise. Many thought that this was Trump being flamboyant, that he would, even recklessly, display how he is the chief negotiator by trying to tackle Middle East peace. However, many do not realize that this has been on Trump's mind for a very, very long time. Over 35 years, to be exact. While many think that Trump happened to grab the presidency by happenstance, just due to a cascade of events in the geopolitical sphere, many peculiar things tell us otherwise. For one, there has been some predictive programming of a Trump presidency via cartoons, as with The Simpsons episode in 2000 called Bart to the Future, or this eerily accurate heavy metal cartoon called The Wall by Peter Cooper from July 1990, which even foretells of a Trump wall. But even more disturbing is Trump's direct integration with the White House back in the early 1980s, which relates back to the photo of the dove I showed before. The photo was used in this Manhattan Inc. magazine edition entitled Donald Trump's Ultimate Deal. In this magazine, Donald tells us how he can solve nuclear arms proliferation across the world. What's shocking about this article, as I mentioned prior, is that Trump states that he has been in close talks with the White House ever since the early 80s, as well as his plan with which he would disarm the world. In referencing to his intertwining with the White House, he states, "I'm dealing at a very high level on this," he said, with people in Washington, in the White House. There was too much at stake for him to risk the wrong kind of exposure on the subject being nuclear proliferation. In summary, he states, referring to the rest of the world outside US and Russia, most of those pre-nuclear countries are in one form or another dominated by the US and Soviet Union. Between those two nations, you have the power to dominate any of those other countries. So we should use our power of economic retaliation, and they use their powers of retaliation, and between the two of us, we will prevent the problem from happening. So Trump's solution is a partnership with Russia to subdue other countries from obtaining nuclear arms. Other than teaming up with Russia, what were his specific plans? Well, he states, again, referring to the other countries, maybe we should offer them something. I'm saying you start off nicely as possible. You apply as much pressure as necessary until you achieve the goal. You start off telling them, let's get rid of it. If that doesn't work, you start cutting off aid, and then more. You do whatever is necessary so these people will have riots in the street, so they can't get water, so they can't get band-aids, so they can't get food, because that's the only thing that's going to do it. The people, the riots. Trump is so bold in this interview that he even declares sanctions against allies like France, since they have the nuclear bomb. He states they've got the bomb, but they don't have it now with the delivery capability they will have in 5 years. If they don't give it up, and I don't mean reduce it, and I don't mean stop, because stopping doesn't mean anything. I mean get it out. If they didn't, I would bring sanctions against that country that would be so strong, so unbelievable." End quote. So these are the thoughts of Donald Trump 35 years ago, that he was already entwined in the White House, that he was already attempting Middle East peace, and that, at least in reference to nuclear disarmament, he is prepared to work with Russia to subdue the rest of the world into riots by massive sanctions and other means. Well, isn't it interesting then that 35 years ago from these statements, Donald Trump is pursuing Middle East peace, that he is being investigated for a variety of collusions with Russians, and also publicly states that the two should moderate the Israeli-Palestinian peace, that just as he was prepared to bring massive sanctions on France 35 years ago, that he states today he will sanction European allies if they continue to deal with Iran in the nuclear Iran deal. So it seems to me that 1, Trump and perhaps the elites have been grooming Trump for this event for nearly 4 decades. And 2, his thoughts of the past seem to be reflective of what he is actively doing right now.
Here's another interview. I don't think I'm going to play it because it's a bit long. It's just interesting to me that Oprah Winfrey asks him about his status and whether he will ever run for president. He says no, he doesn't think so, but if he does, he's going to win. And he's a juvenile there. And what does he say? Exactly what the other one says. He says it out of his mouth. He will force the countries, and he will bring such sanctions on other countries and bring the economies in line and do all of those things that he's doing. This is an agenda that's been coming a long, long time. They have finally come to the point where their plan is going global. That's where we are.